kind of a funny thing happened in the New Age movement where people had this accurate realization that there's a certain thing called the victim mentality that can drag you down and keep you in a place of pain and hurt when really it would better serve you to be able to move on in your life. But from this valid observation, you got this sort of strange tough love approach. And you know, there were a lot of kind of therapeutic approaches that evolved over the last 50 years, or maybe a little longer than that. You know, some of the most well-known ones are like Werner Erhard with his EST stuff, and things in that vein. But it became quite widespread to basically kind of confront people who felt like they were victims and say, well, no, you know, you're the one responsible for your feelings of victimization is you. Whatever happened to you, and now it's up to you to move on from that. And so they kind of took this valid observation but made it like a really confrontational thing. And it's quite possible that that was very effective for some people, but I also know plenty of folks who felt very traumatized by their initial experience, and then they went through this whole supposedly therapeutic approach and they felt even more traumatized after that. But I don't think you need to use the tough love approach in order to actually put into practice this idea of moving on from the victim mentality. And so what you would do in yoga really, you know, yoga sort of, at least as we do it these days, it hasn't necessarily always been like this. You start from a place of kindness towards yourself. So that is to say, okay, maybe I can look at it and say, well, someone did something to me and I feel like a victim. And yes, I acknowledge that what's now keeping me in this place is not the event that actually happened, but it's my own current feelings, my memories, and my trauma. But instead of then kind of being tough love about it and saying, well, shake yourself out of this, move on, you say, that's a really understandable, natural human reaction. Okay, but now what am I going to do about that? I really, really don't want to feel this pain anymore. I'm not a bad person for feeling pain, for feeling like a victim, but really it's just something I want to move on from. And so instead of trying to like shock myself out of it or have a cathartic experience, maybe I can just gradually start to chip away at some of the deeply entrenched aspects of that victim feeling. So, you know, in yoga in general, you look at the different layers of the personality and you try to target some of them specifically. Posturally, the physical body, right? If you feel like a victim, you'll probably carry yourself like a victim. You know, what does a victim look like? Archetypically, well, they tend to have a sunken chest, rounded shoulders. The spine is able to bend forward. It's not so able to bend backwards. So on a physical level, that's going to be the primary mechanism that we work with, is opening up the whole front of the body. Up here, so you can kind of greet the world without fear. And also especially down here, right? Because there's no point faking an openness up here. It just becomes rigid and contrived if you don't actually have support from down here. So that's really what we're going to work with. You know, you can work on some deeper levels, right? Pranayama, where we work with the subtle body. Basically what you're trying to do is, instead of the energy being very kind of shrunken in and held down, you want to start to get it able to rise up and open out. So we'll also have an exercise to do that. And that's what we'll work with here in this video. You know, we could talk at great length about the various other layers of human psychology that yoga could address in this way, but you know, that's a pretty good start. So to counteract these sorts of feelings, the victimization, there's really two things we want to be doing. One is, they call them heart openers, and the other is back bends. They're often lumped in together, but I think they do very different things. You know, if you want to talk in terms of chakras, heart openers, as you might expect, are to do with the heart chakra. But back bends, although people often think they might be with the heart chakra, are actually Manipura chakra, which is feelings of will, power, and you know, basically not feeling dominated in your life. Now we could also, again, if we wanted to talk about chakras, work with the root chakra, which deals with feelings of fundamental safeness in the world. But for today, we're going to stick with these two. So the canonical back bend pose that a lot of people have seen, not a lot of people can do though, is they call it full wheel pose, or Urdhva Dhanurasana, upward bow. So Megan is going to lay down on her back. Some you may be able to do this, and if you can, then more power to you. So you bend your knees, put them on the floor. They're about hip width apart, just 2 fists or so. Heels pretty close to your buttocks, and then hands under your shoulders. And then basically, you want to try to get your shoulders back over your wrists and lift your chest straight up in the air. And you can see that with the shoulders being over the wrist, that means there's no strain on the wrist. If her chest were to move away from the wrists back towards her heels, you can see that's a heck of a lot of strain on the wrists right there. So avoid that. Move as far back as you can as you lift up. All right, and then to come down, you tuck your chin and lay back down. Now, some other things to be aware of: you want to keep your feet pretty parallel. They can turn out a bit, just not too much. Try hugging things in towards the midline, and that'll just help give you a little boost. Now, as a halfway house, if that's a bit too far, then they have this kind of bridge pose, like a half wheel pose basically. Starts the same, but this time you just lift your hips up in the air and clasp your hands underneath you. You pull in the knuckles towards your heels, actively lifting up through the hips, and then the chin actually lifts away from the chest and the chest chases after the chin. So the key is to create opening right here. Again, the Manipura chakra, kind of willpower, feeling not dominated. And then to open up here, the heart chakra, the capacity to actually feel like I can express out in the world my internal feelings and not have to keep them hidden. Okay, now if you want to go a little further from here, what you'll do is take one foot into the midline. She'll start with the left foot coming into the midline. So that's now in the center, and then lift the right leg up in the air. Okay, and you can do this from the full wheel pose as well. It has the same effect. What this will generally do is basically make it more about the Manipura chakra, this feeling of no one's going to dominate me. I'm going to build back up my sense of self-worth. Okay, and then you can do the other side. If you really want to go crazy with it, there's all kinds of variations that can get more and more intense, but this is a good set of ones to work with for now. Okay, now the other thing that I want you to do with this is one thing. You either do your bridge pose, your full wheel pose, or your leg lifts in the bridge pose, and then you can release that. The second one, after you've done the active phase, you can do a passive phase. Okay. So for the passive phase, what you'll need is 2 of these. Often with yoga poses, you can substitute out other stuff in place of real props, but for this one, you pretty much need some actual yoga blocks. But you can get them for like $5 to $10 a piece. It's just quite expensive for just a little piece of rubber, but that's the way of the world. So one of these goes under your middle back or upper back. Make sure it's not too low. Okay, definitely the upper back right around the bottom of your shoulder blades, and the other one goes under your head. So Megan's just going to sit up for a second. I'm going to put one where her upper back is and one where her head is. So she lays back. That one's going under the upper back. This one's going under the head. Now, in terms of the legs, you can either just have them chilling like this. Usually what people find the most effective is to have the feet together and the knees out wide, okay? And then the arms can be down by your sides. Sometimes they'll just naturally come and rest on your body. And you'll see that actually where they naturally fall is right on the heart chakra and right on the Manipura chakra generally, okay? So, and that usually will just happen intuitively. Now, while you're doing this, you can work on the pranayama and the meditation exercises that we're going to go over, or you can just kind of relax here for a while. But basically what this is doing, it's providing the space for healing. You've done the active phase of firing up the Manipura, opening up the heart chakra. Now you need to do a passive phase to let all of that integrate. Lay down comfortably on your back. You can have the soles of your feet together with the knees open to the sides, or if it's more comfortable, have the legs extended. If necessary for the lower back, just place the soles of your feet on the floor with your knees pointing up in the air. Should be a position you can sustain for at least a few minutes. Place one hand on your belly and the other hand over your heart. We'll breathe in a 3-part pattern. The first part is an inhalation into the belly. Second, inhalation into the chest. Third, complete exhalation. So empty your breath and inhale, expand your belly. Inhale, expand your chest. Exhale, empty everything. Inhale, push out the belly. Inhale, push out the chest. Exhale, empty everything. Keep breathing in this pattern on your own. You may find it difficult to push out the belly, that's normal. And just try to stay with it. Release any mental or emotional resistance, bit by bit. It doesn't have to happen all at once. After your next exhalation, rest for a few moments and breathe normally. We'll repeat the breathing pattern, this time with an open mouth. You may find it challenging to breathe through the mouth. Again, that's normal. And see if you can go with the flow. Let the mind remain relatively neutral, like a witness. Allow any feelings to come up, and then observe them without becoming attached to them. Begin by emptying the breath. And open your mouth. Inhale, fill the belly. Inhale, fill the chest. Exhale, empty everything. Inhale, fill the belly. Inhale, fill the chest. Exhale, empty everything. Continue with this pattern, breathing through an open mouth for a little while longer. After your next exhalation, release the pattern of the breath and just breathe normally through the nose for a short while. In your mind's eye, imagine a ball of light in the center of the navel. Each time you inhale, the light brightens, and as you exhale, it travels upwards towards the heart. At the heart, it splits in two, and the light travels across the chest, through the shoulders, down the arms, into the hands. And with each breath in, the navel center glows brightly. With each breath out, the light travels up the chest, splits at the heart, travels along the shoulders and the arms, all the way to the hands. And now release the visualization and simply relax in stillness, allowing the natural healing properties of your body and mind to take over and do the rest. As you feel ready, begin to deepen your breathing once again. Gently move the fingers and the toes, and the ankles and the wrists. Still laying down, bring your hands to a prayer at your heart. Raise the prayer to the center of your forehead. Namaste.